Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about why your strong-willed child has lost complete interest in your reward chart and what to do instead. So first I want to talk about what reward charts actually do. The basic premise is that we are asking somebody, for all rewards, we're asking somebody to let go of their own choice, which you might also call will. So we let go of their own will and do what we would like them to do instead. So if you phrase it as let go of their own will and do what we'd like to do instead, it can kind of make sense why our strong-willed kids are really likely to lose interest in a reward chart. Sometimes they won't like them in the first place, or sometimes they will start to use them and it will work really well for a time until either they expect that you will increase the value of the rewards you're giving, or they will just not lose interest altogether. It will just cease to be an effective strategy. So before I get in any further, I just want to give a couple of quick caveats. So the first thing is, if you're using a reward chart and it's working for you, don't stress. Like, let it go. You can continue to use it. Don't stress about that. If you are using a reward chart and there are other things in your life that are difficult, then you can focus there and let this one go, and you might need to come back to it at another time. You might not. If, however, you're using a reward chart and everything else in your parenting is going really well, I encourage you to have a think about letting go of the reward chart, because we're going to talk about how to do that in a second, or alternatives in a second. So if if it really is working for you, don't stress about it, let it go, keep going with it. But if it's not working for you, or if everything else is going fine, I have a think about whether you want to let go of the reward chart. So, second caveat, that's one caveat. Second caveat about reward charts is that they're actually really helpful at a time where we just need to get over a hump. So for example, if you have a hunch that your child would really enjoy swimming, but you can't get them to even get into the water, there are multiple ways, but one of the effective ways is to use a reward chart. Now, I do have an example where somebody I know used a reward chart to get their child to start doing something, and basically once they achieved the first reward, they then never didn't want to do the thing again, right? So it doesn't always work that way, but if you have a sense that if you can just get them over the hump, then they will be fine to keep going, then that's a really good way to use a reward chart. However, if we come back to if we think about this issue of strong-willed kids losing interest in reward charts, if we break that down, right? We're asking them to let go of their own will to do something we'd prefer instead. And they've basically said, well, that worked for a time, but now I'm bored and I don't want to do that anymore. What we're left with is they're still stuck on what they wanted to do. They're stuck on, what is it that my will tells me to do, that strong will. That's where they're stuck. And so what we want to do, instead of looking for ways for us to incentivize, and whether we do that through a reward style or whether we do it through a punishment style, instead of looking for some kind of incentive to get them to change what they want into just doing what we want, so either just letting go of what they want or changing what they want to what we want, instead of doing that, what we want to do is get our child to understand that there are more options available to get them what they want. So if we think about a very simple example, that if your child really wants to choose what's for dinner, so you say, tonight we're having pasta bake, and the child says, I just want sausage, I only want sausage, then what we can do is help them to understand, why is the sausage so important to them, because that then opens up more options. So if we think about what might be behind this idea that I need to not eat what is on for dinner. So part of what might be underneath that is, I need to feel like I have choice. And this is where sometimes when people say give them choices, it can work, but you often find with strong-willed kids, giving choices doesn't work when you're very clearly just trying to get them to, you can choose everything that's not important to me, right? So then we look at, okay, so what is important to you about the sausage? How can we make that choice available to you without making it like a like a facade. They can see through your facade. So instead of looking at like what's a superficial way to get choice, what other choices could they make that would be okay for you, that would make it so that they feel like they genuinely have some autonomy in this situation. If it's something like, I need to know that I'm important to you, well, then there's a whole range of ways we can make them feel important to us while also eating the chicken pasta bake, right? So this is where, and I apologize to any vegetarian parents, I didn't think through my examples before I did this, so I chose 2 meat-based examples, but anyway. So you can see how once we get in under what is driving their will, right, then we know why are they not interested in what we would otherwise try to incentivize them for. And we want to, you've gotten to it if it feels like there's more options available to you. And we want our kids to notice that there are more options available to them. And then all we have to do then is find an option that works for them and an option that works for us. And that part is the simplest part. The tricky part is getting into what's important to them, what's important to you, how do we make them work together. So that's our first thing, is getting them to notice what's underneath of it. The second thing is getting them to understand, particularly for strong-willed children, making sure that you're explaining things in a way that isn't arbitrary. So if we think about this dinner example again, if you try to explain why can't they have what they want, if you start saying, well, the dinner is pasta, like, it's arbitrary. The dinner doesn't have to be pasta. You could go and make a different dinner. You could go and buy a different dinner. They could have chosen the dinner in advance. Like, there's so many reasons why the dinner is pasta bake is just an arbitrary thing. And that's like culturally what we do is we say things that are arbitrary like this, and we leave it, the onus is on the person hearing the message to sort through and translate into what does that mean. So if that was a discussion between my husband and I'm meant to, if he says, well, I made chicken pasta, that's what's for dinner, me as the receiving, on the receiving end of that message, I'm meant to translate that into, well, it would be unreasonable for me to expect him to waste that dinner make a different dinner for me. Or it would be unreasonable for me to expect that he would make a second dinner because he doesn't want to make 2 dinners every night. Or, like there's all these different things, but I, as the receiver of that message, I'm meant to do the work to translate what it actually means. What we want to flip this to is we get in the habit of actually, we do the work, we give them the reason. So if your real reason for why they can't have their choice for dinner is because it's not good for their nutrition, then explain that. If your real reason is that you don't want to waste dinner and you wish you had asked them before you started cooking but you didn't, you don't want to waste the food because insert, your explanation of why that's important to you, then that's what you say. We're not looking for something that is valid, like we want it to be the truth for us. So it's not like it's a valid reason as in everybody would agree with you. It's definitely not looking for something that your child will agree with. What you're looking for is your actual truth. This is the reason why I can't give you what you're asking for. And that way, then they know that it's not because their need isn't important. It's not because they don't matter to you. And it's not because you're unwilling to work with them. There's a legitimate barrier in the way. That maintains trust and it maintains teamwork so that you guys can work together in the future for how do we make this work so it works for both of us. So, if we think then about those times where we actually can't give them what they want and they're refusing to participate, in this moment, for most of us parents, there's this piece about being okay with not being able to fix it. And I pause because I know that's going to cause some uncomfortable feelings in many people listening, because we want to be able to fix it. It's a simple problem. It's just dinner. Why can't we fix it? When actually, in this case, maybe you can't. And this is really important for our strong-willed kids, is to recognize that just because we can't fix something doesn't mean there's something wrong. So if we think about that, it's okay to be frustrated that you're not getting your choice for dinner. It's okay to be upset that you didn't get your choice for dinner. It's okay if your parents made a mistake and they forgot that you had asked for a special dinner and instead they made something else. It's okay to be worried about whether that means that you're not important to them. And then we can just have a conversation about it. You know, like all of this piece of not being able to fix it is a really big driver for the urge that makes us want to use a reward chart or a punishment or something, right? It's looking for how do we not fix it. Now, obviously, there are times where that's not enough. We actually need to force the behaviour, and that's a whole nother conversation, which we can have at another time. But I just want to look at, so those moments where if your child has lost interest in a reward chart, your first step is to help them get clear on what is it that is in the way of them doing the thing you want them to do anyway. Like, what is the problem from their perspective? Then you want to make sure that you're explaining why you need them to do the thing that you're asking them to do in real, truthful, descriptive ways. And then the third one is getting that comfort with the idea that you can't always fix things. So if this has brought up some stuff for you, so sometimes it's a skill set around helping them to get clear on what's going on for them. Sometimes it's a skill set of recognizing, like, why am I so wanting this to control this? What am I needing in this space? That can sometimes be something that we need skills to deal with, because as I said, our culture doesn't generally speak like this. We tend to speak in like code that everybody's meant to unpack. So if that's something that you need help with, and also if you need help with that idea that sometimes I can't fix it, and like actually being deeply okay with it, not intellectually, but deeply okay with not being able to fix everything. If you need help with one or all three of those things, book in a conversation with me and let's chat about what's next for you. You can get a free conversation with me at jodiethornton.com/15. You can give me a brain dump on what's going on for your strong-willed child, what comes up for you when you think about using the strategies I've talked about today. We can talk about how I can support you to improve your skill set and get really comfortable on the inside with making it just easy. That it's okay, like when your child has something that they're really attached to, that doesn't need to ruin the afternoon. It doesn't need to end in escalation. It doesn't need to end in you guys feeling disconnected from each other. We can work through that to make sure that it feels really easy for you. So definitely book in a chat if that's something that would be of help. Thanks so much for watching.